Hello there. Good morning to all you people out there in YouTube land. Welcome here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. We're here to do an episode of the series we are running for the month of March, which is my 31 favorite rock bands who released 2 albums in the same year. So we're down to the second last day. People are going to be wondering. They know that I'm pretty sure people know what the 2 albums groups that are coming, but I'm not quite sure where I'm going to put these, and I am going to reveal that right now. So Genesis, Trick of the Tail, released on February 2nd, I believe, 1976, and Wind and Wuthering. So that's actually a Trick of the Tail for those of you who are keeping a accurate record, A Trick of the Tail, and Wind and Wuthering, which was released December 27th, 1976. So both coming out the same year. One of the best combinations of albums released in the same year by any group at any time. And ironically, this was at a time when the band wasn't sure they were even going to survive. They had taken on Phil Collins as their vocalist. He had been playing drums with the band for 4 or 5 years at this point. Peter Gabriel left the band in 74 after Abe Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, and most people figured that's it. There's no way they can recover without him. He was the major draw for the band. But Phil Collins stepped up to the mic, and not just him, but the band nailed 2 of their very best albums in a row. A Trick of the Tail, Wind and Wuthering. Very different though. I mean, the sound on both of them is pretty similar. It's very kind of Genesis sound, no doubt about that. The album covers are a lot different though. So we'll start with A Trick of the Tail. This is most likely my favorite Genesis album. I've had some debate over the years as to whether Selling England by the Pound might actually end up being my favorite at this point. They're both pretty close, but this album was one of my first 2. Both of these were my first 2 albums by Genesis. I'm not quite sure which one was first. I always kind of thought it was Wind and the Wuthering, but I could be wrong about that. So this has a lot of really good stuff on it. So at this point, this would be their, I believe this is their, to me, this is their magnus opus album to me, but obviously a lot of people have different feelings about that. Some think it's Selling Them by the Pound. Many more probably would choose Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. So yeah, you've got a lot of really good stuff on this album. It hasn't aged as well as I hoped it would have. I think I played it so much I kind of burnt it out quite a bit, but it's still a great album with a lot of different sounds. You've got little harder tracks or up that tempo tracks like Dance on a Volcano and Robbery, Assault, and Battery. Always kind of like them. They're both much faster paced, heavy, maybe a little bit heavier on the side. Then you've got Squonk, which is that kind of story. Both albums are very story oriented. They're all telling little stories here and there. You've got, Squonk, which is a very different sounding story type song. Madman Moon, probably the same type of thing. Then you've got both Entangled and Ripples, which are very similar, more soft oriented Genesis, very great vocal sounds. I like the stories of both. They're 2 of my favorite Genesis songs to sing. And then you got the final 2 tracks, A Trick of the Tail and Los Endos. They tend to do that on the last song on this album, or What Gorilla and Los Endos, both kind of instrumental parts, which I've never been a huge fan of, but I don't mind them. Trick of the Tail, of course, to me was a little bit of a filler at one point, but I've grown to like it quite a bit, and that's the title track of this album. The other album Wind and Wuthering, sorry. Don't want to upset anybody, has one of my favorite Genesis tracks early on, which was the 11th Earl of Mar, another kind of a bit of a heavier song than, maybe it's in the same light as Dance on a Volcano. So they kind of open the same way. You have a lot of stories on this one too. One for the Vine, All in a Mouse's Night, Blood on the Rooftops, all these lots of good stuff going on here. Unquiet Slumbers for the Sleepers, In the Quiet Earth. You have really good stuff here. You do have the What Gorilla, which is kind of the same as Los Endos, as I've already said. And you got one song here, Your Own Special Way, which is kind of really the beginning, although many feel that happened on Then There Were Three, of that kind of poppy sound that they started to get into a few years later. This is a great album. Afterglow is perfect in many ways too. And this is also the final album to feature Steve Hackett. And he's great on both albums. I wish they would have given him more leeway with the guitar. I think these are both great albums. And to me, if you want to hear a little bit more of this sound, you can go over to the Acolyte album that Steve Hackett did as his own solo in the same year or the year before. Same year, both of them. So great album. I do like it a lot. It's a little bit, the theme, the cover, a little bit more gray, a little more foreboding, darker. I don't know if it's darker, and it's just very English. Both of them very English. Great album. So you're a better. There's very few that are a better pair of albums, and we're going to find out my favorites tomorrow. So I hope to see you then, and take care. I don't think it'll be a big surprise, but have yourself a good day, night, and a good evening, and see you tomorrow. Goodbye.